In a world exhausted by endless conflict, where violence and uncertainty have become a daily reality for millions, the longing for peace feels more urgent than ever. The Middle East, in particular, has been gripped by turmoil for decades, with families caught in the crossfire, and entire communities living under the shadow of war. Each new escalation brings fresh heartbreak, and hope often seems out of reach. Against this backdrop, President Donald Trump's October 2025 announcement on Truth Social sent shockwaves through the Middle East and beyond. The world watched as his words spread rapidly across news outlets and social media, igniting intense debate and speculation about what might come next. Trump, never one to shy away from controversy, had once again thrust himself into the center of a global crisis. In a stunning declaration, he claimed that Hamas was ready for a peace deal and would release all hostages taken during the October 2023 attacks, on one condition: Israel must immediately halt its bombing campaign in Gaza. The announcement was both dramatic and unexpected, raising questions about its authenticity and the willingness of both sides to compromise. This bold public directive seized the narrative, forcing Israel's hand and putting Prime Minister Netanyahu in a reactive position. Suddenly, the world's attention was fixed on Jerusalem, as leaders scrambled to respond to Trump's challenge. The pressure on Israeli officials mounted, with international observers and local citizens alike demanding answers. Trump's move reframed the crisis, stopped the bombing, saved the hostages, and opened the door to peace. For the first time in months, there was a clear, if precarious, path forward. The possibility of a ceasefire and the safe return of hostages brought a surge of cautious optimism to a region desperate for relief. For hostage families and millions of Palestinians, it was a rare glimmer of hope after years of suffering. Parents clung to the possibility of reunion, while children dared to imagine a future without fear. Across Gaza and Israel, vigils and prayers reflected the fragile hope that this moment could mark a turning point. But the world now waits to see if this dramatic gambit will break the deadlock, or become just another failed initiative in a long history of missed opportunities. As leaders deliberate and citizens hold their breath, the stakes could not be higher. The next steps will determine whether this bold announcement leads to lasting peace, or simply fades into memory as another chapter in an endless conflict. At the heart of the breakthrough is a detailed, 20-point peace proposal, meticulously crafted after months of intense negotiations and back-channel diplomacy. This document represents the most comprehensive attempt yet to address the complex realities on the ground and to chart a path toward lasting peace in the region. The plan, unveiled by the Trump administration, is the result of high-level talks involving not just American officials, but also key regional stakeholders and international mediators. It reflects Washington's vision for a new era of stability, but also the political calculations and pressures facing all parties involved. At its core, the plan calls for an immediate, comprehensive ceasefire, an urgent halt to hostilities that have devastated communities and claimed countless lives. This ceasefire is intended to create the breathing room necessary for further steps and to signal a genuine commitment to peace from both sides. Following the ceasefire, the proposal outlines a phased withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza's densely populated urban centers. These forces would relocate to designated security zones, a move designed to reduce tensions and restore a sense of normalcy for civilians living in the crossfire. Perhaps the most sensitive and emotionally charged element of the plan is a synchronized exchange. Hamas would release the remaining hostages, many of whom have been held for months under harrowing conditions. In return, Israel would free hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, many of whom have been separated from their families for years. This exchange is not just a humanitarian gesture. It's a calculated step to build trust and demonstrate goodwill on both sides. The prisoner and hostage swap is the linchpin of the entire proposal, intended to generate momentum and foster a climate of cooperation. It's a moment that could shift public opinion and encourage further concessions. However, the plan is not without controversy. Nearly 900,000 displaced Palestinians would be barred from returning to key areas of Gaza, at least for the foreseeable future. These areas would remain under Israeli control, raising fears among Palestinians that their displacement could become permanent and that the map of Gaza might be redrawn to their detriment. Hamas, for its part, has rejected similar maps in the past, viewing them as attempts to divide Gaza and formalize the displacement of its people. The group argues that any plan which cements new borders or restricts the right of return is unacceptable. These unresolved territorial issues, and the deep mistrust they fuel, threaten to derail the entire peace process before it can truly begin. The challenge now is whether negotiators can find creative solutions to these sticking points and reassure those who feel left behind. Ultimately, the plan's success hinges on overcoming these deep-rooted grievances and convincing both sides that compromise is not only possible, but essential for a future free from conflict. Hamas's response to the American plan was unexpectedly flexible, surprising many observers who had anticipated a hardline rejection. Instead of outright dismissal, Hamas signaled a willingness to engage, showing a pragmatic side that rarely surfaces in public negotiations. The group indicated it was open to releasing hostages, a move that could mark a significant turning point in the ongoing conflict. This gesture, while not a full capitulation, suggests a calculated effort to shift the narrative and possibly win international favor. Even more striking, Hamas expressed readiness to accept a technocratic government for Gaza, one led by non-partisan experts rather than political factions. This could pave the way for a new administrative structure, potentially easing tensions and opening doors for reconstruction and humanitarian aid. This shift in tone and policy reflects the intense pressure exerted by regional mediators such as Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. These countries have been working tirelessly behind the scenes, urging Hamas to show flexibility and warning of dire consequences if the conflict drags on. The mediators made it clear, continued resistance would only bring more devastation to Gaza's already battered population, deepening the humanitarian crisis and isolating Hamas further on the world stage. Yet Hamas's acceptance comes with significant caveats. The group has made no promise to disarm, maintaining its military capabilities as a bargaining chip and a symbol of resistance. Nor has it agreed to exclude itself from future Palestinian governance, insisting on retaining a role in shaping Gaza's political future and ensuring its influence is not erased. The group's offer to release hostages is tied to a phased ceasefire, a gradual Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and a comprehensive prisoner exchange, each step carefully designed to maximize leverage and minimize concessions. By structuring the process this way, Hamas ensures it retains bargaining power at every stage, making it difficult for Israel to secure its objectives without significant compromises. These are not minor details. They strike at the heart of Israel's security concerns, raising difficult questions about the future stability of the region and the risks of renewed violence. Hamas's move opens the door for talks, creating a rare opportunity for dialogue after months of bloodshed and stalemate. But the path to a lasting agreement is fraught with obstacles. The negotiations ahead promise to be tense, complex, and filled with mistrust on all sides. The path forward is anything but straightforward, with every step likely to be contested and every concession weighed against the risks and hopes for a fragile peace. Trump's announcement cornered Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, caught between U.S. pressure and his far-right coalition's demands. Publicly, Israel agreed to the first phase of the plan, but behind the scenes, Trump's call for a bombing halt sparked shock and frustration. The Israeli military paused its offensive, ceding initiative under American pressure. Netanyahu's coalition partners threatened to collapse the government if he concedes too much, especially if Hamas retains arms or political influence. Trump's statement, pointedly omitting Netanyahu's name, was seen as a diplomatic slight, signaling U.S. impatience. Netanyahu now faces a perilous balancing act: appease Washington or risk his government's survival. Every move is fraught with political risk at home and abroad. The fragile peace push owes much to the tireless efforts of regional mediators, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. Qatar's unique ties to Hamas and the U.S. made it a vital go-between, persuading Hamas to soften its stance. Egypt, controlling Gaza's Rafah crossing, leveraged its influence to facilitate talks and manage humanitarian access. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan added diplomatic weight, pushing for a unified Arab position and a two-state solution. This coalition of mediators applied coordinated pressure, creating the conditions for dialogue. Their behind-the-scenes work was crucial in bringing all parties to the table. Without them, this diplomatic opening would not exist. All eyes now turn to Cairo, where indirect negotiations begin, perhaps the last, best chance for peace. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner lead the American team. Hamas and Israel send delegations, with Egyptian and Qatari officials shuttling between them. The agenda: hammer out the ceasefire, troop withdrawal, and hostage prisoner exchange, each a potential deal-breaker. The toughest issues remain. Israel demands Hamas's disarmament. Hamas insists on a future political role. These existential questions have derailed past efforts. The negotiators must find creative solutions to bridge these divides. The outcome will shape not just Gaza's future, but the region's stability for years to come. The stakes could not be higher. Despite diplomatic momentum, violence in Gaza rages on. Trump's call for a bombing halt brought only a brief pause. Israeli strikes and defensive operations quickly resumed. In the 24 hours after the announcement, 65 more Palestinians were killed, pushing the death toll above 67,000. Gaza's devastation is staggering. Hospitals, schools, and homes reduced to rubble, with millions facing dire shortages. The war's origins, Hamas's 2023 attack and Israel's relentless response, fuel deep scars and mistrust. Every new casualty threatens to derail negotiations and harden positions. The window for peace is closing fast as violence continues. In Washington, Trump's initiative has drawn broad, if cautious, support across the political spectrum. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Senator Lindsey Graham publicly reinforced the call for a ceasefire and hostage release, signaling unified U.S. resolve. This bipartisan front is meant to maximize pressure on both Israel and Hamas, discouraging either from exploiting divisions. Yet, officials know Hamas's conditional agreement is a tactical move, not a surrender. Its refusal to disarm remains the biggest obstacle. Trump has warned that if Hamas clings to power and arms, it faces obliteration. The administration's strategy paired diplomacy with the threat of overwhelming force. The outcome of Cairo's talks will test this approach. As negotiators gather in Cairo, the stakes are immense. This is the most promising diplomatic opening since the war began. Trump's high-risk strategy has forced all sides to the table, but the core conflict remains: Israel's demand for security versus Hamas's refusal to disarm. The American plan's restrictions on Palestinian return add another layer of difficulty. Netanyahu's political survival and Hamas's future both hinge on these talks. For Trump, success would be a major foreign policy win. Failure could be disastrous. The world watches, hoping this fragile chance for peace isn't lost to history and mistrust. The fate of millions hangs on what happens next in Cairo.